Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined with Mr. Tom Prigg. He is running for Congress in the 14th District of Pennsylvania. So I finally get some more people from my home state. This is my third PA candidate, so that's exciting. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I actually had you recommended by several people. Because it seems like all the candidates I'm getting from Pennsylvania are in the Pittsburgh area. I'm in Harrisburg area, and we have slim pickings. Like, we're just not doing too well around here. But you are an Army veteran. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did in the Army and how long you were there?
Yeah. So I was in the Army back in 88 to 92. I was in the 82nd Airborne, infantryman, like a grunt. I started out as an M60 gunner because when I went in, I was 130 pounds. I think they thought it was funny to give me the heaviest job in the platoon. And a lot of times my weight, because I was a paratrooper and when I had my chute on, weighed as much as I did. The parachute, the equipment, and the gun. And then later I became a scout sniper once I was in Panama. So that's in a nutshell. I can always tell you stories.
Well, and I saw on your page that your daughter is actually currently serving in the Middle East now as well.
She's back now. What's that?
Oh, she's back now. That's good.
Yeah. So she was, she is in the Army Reserves while she's going to college. So she's going to UC Boulder for mechanical engineering, and she serves in the reserves. And then her combat tour came up, so she served over in the Middle East for nearly a year, and then she returned in May. She's still in. She's a sergeant now, and she does pretty well. She's pretty tough, and if you look at her picture, you don't see Army, but that's what's really cool, A lot of the women are changing the roles of what things are, right? And what things should be. And that's pretty cool, especially once your daughter being that person, one of those people. I could
see it, actually. I looked at her and I was like, I could totally see a badass in there. I can see it for sure. Riley and Logan, say hi to Dad. They're proud. Awesome. That's cute. When I was looking at your background, something I always like to learn about is people's upbringing, because I think it's definitely shows what kind of candidate you're going to be. Are you born into the 1%, or do you understand what it's like to struggle? Your website states that you grew up in a poor blue-collar family around Pittsburgh where the steel mills were. And I'm originally from Bethlehem, so I totally get what that does to, jobs and everything like that. Do you want to kind of explain how it was growing up in your family and in the area you were in?
Oh, sure. So my sisters and I were raised by my mother. Around 10 years old, my father and mother split up, and my mother was raising us. And it was pretty tough struggle. We were in poverty. I was in rural Washington County, and it was, we lose utilities. We lose heat in the winter. We lost heat all the time. Sometimes we lose light. Sometimes our only meal would be a free school lunch. I talk about a lot of that in my stump speech. But what's important as far as why is that important for a candidate? I think one of the reasons is, so we're arguing among the candidates about $15 minimum wage. And one of the candidates says, well, $15, that's okay for Pittsburgh, but it's not needed for the rural areas, I guess because of cost of living or something. I'm like, have you ever tried to live on 10, 11 bucks? Now in Pennsylvania, it's like $7.50 or $7.30 or something. But 10 or 11 bucks. 11 bucks is 23,000 a year. So you're living, basically poverty wages. You have to have another job. A lot of these jobs don't provide benefits. It's like, it's not just $15 that people aren't getting. And they don't understand livable wage unless they've been in poverty. They really don't understand the struggle that people have. You get a flat tire and now you're going to miss a bill. You get job insecurity where, well, I make $10 or $11 an hour. I could be making 8 or 9. So I'm not going to push for that next raise, or I'm not going to complain about my medical bills going up. And it happens all the time. And I think being a person from that position of poverty, I really, really get why I can't bend on these issues and why it has to happen. And when they say, well, that's going to cost our companies and make things more expensive, first, I don't believe that. But number two is, so what? So it's a little more expensive. So somebody has to pay an extra $1 for a hose, something like that. What kind of society are we when we're more worried about what we can buy rather than a child starving? And that's my bottom line. That's why I won't bend.
And if people actually do the research and look at places who have raised the minimum wage, it actually makes the economy boom because people have more money to spend. It's not that, complicated. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Can I say something about that? Point that out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think people really get the difference between an inclusive economy and extractive, where if people have money, now they can fix their car. If they have money, they can fix the plumbing. If they have money, guess what? The store. Well, maybe I'll get the larger package of chicken, which is a few bucks more. When they did the universal basic income in India and I believe it's Kenya or maybe Tanzania, what they found was people were then going to the doctor to get medical problems fixed, and actually improved health. All these things about giving people more money means businesses around also build up because more people are spending money at those local businesses. It's not just handing out more money to workers. It's those workers will be spending more money in the communities. That's how an economy grows.
Right. There's actually some issues with the UBI. There's I don't know, it's not always advantageous, but do you support a federal job guarantee?
Oh, the Bernie Sanders job guarantee?
Right.
I have to be honest. I really haven't seen how he's working the job guarantee. I'm all for full employment, and I've seen many, many different types of bills and stuff like that for full unemployment or full employment. The other thing I do like, I am not against a UBI. I think someday we're going to have it because nearly every job is going to be automated to some degree. By 2030, we'll have 40% of the existing jobs in automation. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. There are different ways that we could possibly have like a automation tax, things like that. As far as what I really like about Bernie Sanders is he doesn't bring up something unless it's well researched. Medicare for All is one of those. There's a plan of how it expands. It's not just an idea of, hey, gee, wouldn't it be great if. It's no, this is how we're going to expand it. This is how much it's going to cost, things like that. I just saw the 100%, I guess, full employment articles just the other day, but I haven't read it. I have to be honest.
No, it's super new to some people. I started researching UBI because at Real Progressives, we've always supported the federal job guarantee. And that's because when you look into UBI, they actually cancel all programs, as in you no longer get Medicare, you no longer get Social Security, you no longer get unemployment, you no longer get food stamps. They literally cancel everything. And the average amount people get is actually like $623 a month. And if you live by yourself, it's not going to cut it. So they actually found that also the unemployment rate can go up because a lot of people say, well, I have this money, why would I like to work? And some jobs go unfulfilled. Whereas you take the federal job guarantee and anyone who wants to work is given a job. They're guaranteed a job. What they, whatever they work in, that's up for them to decide. But they're earning a living. They're being productive. They're putting money back into the economy. So it's definitely more advantageous. So yeah, I would definitely look into that. I think we're going to, hopefully, since Byrne, actually came out with it, hopefully it'll gain more traction. Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. One of our Real Progressives teammates, he said a UBI is also just a monthly stipend that requires another job to make a living. So it's not enough to live on. It's just kind of like a subsidy.
Yeah, and the and that's how I also look at it. That's what's been used in the three places that it has been enacted. I know, I believe it's Norway has just abandoned it, but it was more for political reasons, not that it was not working. In Kenya, India, people typically invested their money back into a business or fixing things. So that they could work. The guaranteed jobs for all reminds me of the mayor of Albuquerque's job idea. Have you saw this? He
I don't think so.
He helps employ homeless people, and they actually go and they ask people if they want a job.
I did read about that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And that has been very, very successful. And what he's done is he's actually helped build people up with this employment. And then they're able to really get employment on their own. Because a lot of people, when they're homeless, have a lot of other issues, whether it's their address, whether it's clothing. There are just so many reasons. Then there's a lot of other issues sometimes. They're mentally handicapped in some way and things like that. So that I thought that was really, really cool way of getting people back, and something that I was reading in, which sounds a lot like Bernie's.
Yeah, that's such an amazing idea. You also talk a lot about universal health care, which is kind of a litmus test to pretty much anyone voting. Like if you're going to be a progressive, or if you're going to earn votes, it's that seems to be something that's a deal breaker for a lot of people. So can you explain why you are passionate about universal healthcare, and basically what convinced you to put that on your platform?
Well, for one thing, I tell people it's cheaper, because everyone asks the question, how do you pay for it? And I tell them this current system is the most expensive in the world, despite that every industrial nation, every developed nation has a universal health care, single payer, however you want to label it. We pay 18% of our GDP, as opposed to the next highest medical care in the world, which is single payer of 11%. And then the next one after that is 8.8%. The other thing I tend to tell people is we pay 5 times as much as the average Canadian does. 5 times as much individually. We pay 40% per procedure as the next highest country, which is Australia. It's more expensive. Now, we not only can we have it cheaper, but we can cover everyone. And everyone has an equality to healthcare. This current system, not only does it not cover everyone, but it's also a stratification of your economic income, right? Of your socioeconomic status. So the wealthier you are, the better plan you can have, the better healthcare you get. I mean, what kind of country is it? I don't want to keep saying that, where we allow people to die simply because you couldn't afford the right insurance, right? Half of GoFundMe, or nearly half, goes to raising money to pay medical bills. It doesn't do well enough. I don't see why people are against it, to be honest, other than, well, there's two reasons. One is they're worried about political commercials, and number two is they want, they got the insurance companies in their pocket.
Absolutely. I mean, I've worked in in healthcare for like 10 years. I see the astronomical prices, and many of those years were in Medicare. So I would, see these elderly people who were like cutting their pills in half, or, taking one of the medications every 3 days instead of every day. And it's heartbreaking, but, Bernie came out with legislation to lower prescription drugs, to actually have a cap on them. And a lot of Democrats actually voted against it. People like Cory Booker, and things like that. Of course, it comes out he's had a couple 100,000 in donations. Actually, in PA, why can't I think of it? Not Wolf. Casey voted against it too. So I'm in Harrisburg area, so I brought a petition up to his office and just kind of like held his secretary hostage for about an hour. It's very convenient. So yeah, that also leads us to money and politics. What is your feeling as far as corporations making donations?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways I'd want to tackle this. Number one is I would want to end all corporate PACs, and I would define private business PACs as corporations, partnerships, and I forget my fourth. But the idea is, if you eliminate the ability of a private industry to create a political PAC, the other I'd like to eliminate is the requiring employees to donate to PACs. They cannot be asked by their employer to donate to a PAC. Another thing I'd like to do, which kind of gets to money and it kind of gets to corruption in general, is a sunshine law for Congress people. Any kind of discussion with anybody in the industry of a bill that you're working on has to be recorded and has to be published publicly. And I would make that a federal offense. And sunshine laws work for other levels of politics. Why not the congressional and Senate level? And those are three big ones, on top of obviously Citizens United. And I'm a grassroots guy, believe me. Is such an unfair advantage, and that doesn't even eliminate money in politics. You want to understand money in politics, and you just look at what Congress is made up of, right? It's made up of lawyers and corporate people. Well, why is that? Well, the reason is, when you're raising money, you have to get on the phone. You have to make phone calls. Well, who's going to raise money? Like, just for yourself, right? Who can you call up and ask for $10? People you know. And maybe you need $20. Well, who can give me $20, right? So what you do is you got these people who bubble to the top because they know wealthy people, because they're one of the wealthy people. Now, it's nothing against a person for being wealthy, but that's a filter of what's been happening in our government as far as bubbling to the top. And then obviously, who are those people that have the big money to donate? Well, they're usually lawyers, or the number one big donors, corporate people, and that brings in their businesses. And hey, can you do this? Hey, remember a donation? I mean, if you think back on when they were eliminating the ACA, trying to, and the one Republican said, my donors called me and said, don't ask for another dollar if you don't vote a certain way. So big money is a big problem everywhere. Now, how do I eliminate the individual of those networks? We lower the cap on how much you can donate, because then that eliminates all these lawyers and corporate people from donating $3,000. Let's say we make a percentage of the median income of a district. Now you're talking about like making it even for everybody about highest donation. So if the median income is, say, in a district like mine, around 30K, it's a percentage of that. That drastically makes it me more competitive money-wise, because it doesn't matter how wealthy somebody is, they get the same cap.
That's interesting. I've never heard of someone saying that, but that's really interesting. It makes sense. I interviewed Congressman Ro Khanna a few months ago, and he said he actually came out with legislation for Congress to sign if they agreed never to take PAC money again. And including him, 6 people signed it out of all of Congress. So I'm actually kind of surprised 6 people signed it, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, it certainly gives you an idea of who they're in there for, essentially. So you also have on here, on your platform, political corruption. And what do you mean by that, aside from the money?
Boy, I mean, I feel like there is so much political corruption, whether you're talking about nepotism. I mean, it's unbelievable. The different levels, the backroom deals. That's why I want the Sunshine Law. There's so much of, well, I can get you in, I can get this board behind you, I can get these people behind you if, and those are the kind of things that I like to hit. I feel like it's kind of low-hanging fruit, but it's low-hanging fruit that would make huge impacts right away. Donald Trump making business deals using foreign policy, right? That's why they're investigating Trump Towers in Russia. Why did, I think it's Melina that got the 60-some patents from China after the TPP was wiped out? And not that I was for the TPP, but at the same time, I don't want you making private business deals with foreign policy. So those are just a couple examples.
Hillary Clinton has actually done many of those things too. So that was a concern, and that actually brings me to my next question. If Hillary would have won, do you think you'd still be running?
Yes, I was planning on it.
Okay, good. Because a lot of people honestly say they are running because Trump is in there, and as a progressive, it's a fear that, okay, it would have been business as usual. We wouldn't have all these progressives coming out to run if, it's status quo. So that's definitely good that you were going to run anyway.
Yeah, I've been planning this for about 4 years. I started back in 2012, and I looked into it, and I realized there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of, how do you build networks? How do you connect with different groups? There's veteran groups and unions and NAACP and the activist groups and the different committees. Like, there's just so many networks that you have to touch because you need so much help, especially when you're a grassroots person. You need everybody. And it took time. And I said, okay, I was actually going to decide on December. And then December came, Donald Trump won. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to get in this mess. This is horrible, the way politics has gone. And then January, a friend of mine called me up, and she goes, you know what? I just signed you up for Justice Democrats. I think you should still do it. I said, okay, but you got to help me. So we did it. I just put in the place, everything I was building up for years on how to do things. And yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Good for you. And actually, you guys, we were talking before we started. Tom has been doing this for almost 18 months. So you can imagine how grueling that is, how many phone calls and door knocking and all that shit. I did it for a few months for Bernie, and I was ready to cry in the damn fetal position. It is not easy at all.
It definitely works. Yeah, you definitely, especially before the maps were redrawn, and I was working a previous district, which was 200 miles point to point, take you 3 hours to drive. And it was from Beaver, the Ohio line, all the way out to Johnstown. And then there's even, some territory out east of Johnstown. And I did that nearly every day. As soon as work was done, I was out at an event or meeting people and stuff like that. And it wears on you. But at the same time, what an experience it's been. The people I've met, the people I connected with, the different issues. It's pretty cool at the same time. I'll be glad when I can get arrested, though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, if any of the studies you look at, people are so much more likely to vote for who actually took the time to speak to them and come to their house or go to their events, or because a lot of people don't do that. They think, social media has been amazing, but that's not the only thing. And some candidates think that that's enough. You talk about, well, actually, before we move on, what are the differences between yourself and the other candidates who are also running in your party? Do they take big money? Are they progressive? What are the differences?
My closest competitor is a corporate executive. She's retired from Ford. She did that for 30 years. She personally doesn't have any union connection. She doesn't have veteran connection. She doesn't have any experiences of struggling, really. So I find when she actually gets out there, she's going to, when she actually gets out there, I think she's going to have a hard time connecting with the rural people within the district, because our district is all rural. And it's southwestern PA as well. Southwestern PA is very blue collar. Once the steel mills left, we were left with nothing, and our entire economy collapsed. And for the rural counties, it still hasn't rebuilt. She's not for like a $15 minimum wage. She's not for universal health care. So it's all pretty standard old Democrat, or at least 90s Democrat. Let's say it that way.
So as far as
I feel like I'm old Democrat.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I feel like I'm an old Democrat as far as back in McGovern days and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as being a Dem and running in a party, what many people, including myself, have Dem exited. Now, what do you think? What do you hope to change in the Democratic Party? Because a lot of us feel that it focuses on Trump instead of what the Democrats can do for us. It's, well, they suck, so you may as well fall in line with us. So what do you hope to bring to, first of all, hopefully make them more progressive? I'm not sure if that's plausible, but what do you hope to change?
I think the biggest thing in the party that needs to change is more progressive values, to be honest. I think we need to pull away from corporate Democrats. We need to pull away from corporations. We need to get back. I mean, it's no secret why Donald Trump got elected. I mean, let's be honest. It wasn't Russians. It was people feel like they've been forgotten. Like these rural areas in southwestern PA, which is what I'm talking about. Like, when I was talking about my competitor, I'm not ripping on her as a person. That's great what she did. But as far as the way people feel and what kind of positions we've done, it hasn't built up economies. I mean, look at the local economies. Look at the towns. So we need a party that addresses the people's needs: healthcare, education, economy. And it doesn't do that. There's a lot of talk about it, the party doing that, but there's not a lot of action. And to say that the Republicans block him every time, What about in 2010 when we had the Senate, the House, and the presidency? What did we do? Right? Those kind of things need to change. That's what I want to do. I want to help get other candidates, other politicians in those kind of positions to make those changes. On top of myself, push those kind of bills.
The CCC sent something to my house about a month ago, and their new slogan, I'm serious, you guys, you can look it up, is, I mean, have you seen the other guys? That's their slogan. Like,
oh, really?
It's, yeah, literally.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's like, who comes up with this shit? Like,
It's
you're
like,
literally saying, like,
at least I'm not the ugliest person in the bar. Can you take me home, please? I mean, what?
It's like,
what?
We're not that great,
Where
but have you seen them? Whoa.
Like
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. That does not win votes for them at all. Another thing you have on your platform is a Green New Deal. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what areas in the environment you'd like to address specifically?
Yeah. So it's not a new idea anymore because it seems like everybody talks on this. But what I wanted to do was I want to bring in a renewable energy sector because we don't have an industry anymore in our country to build an economy on. So how do you do that? I change the role of subsidies. The more economically in need an area is, the larger a subsidy. The poorer the area, the larger a subsidy. And what that does is it'll bring in new businesses, new innovation into the areas we need them the most. So this is one way of promoting renewable energy. I want subsidies for renewable energy. We give them the oil and gas, but why? It's crazy profitable. Right? Let's get new businesses going. Let's get new innovation going. And let's put people at work, in the country back at work. We can do that. It's cleaner. It's going to provide more energy in the very near future. It's going to be cheaper. I just published a story today. I think it's less than a penny per kilowatt of this new manganese hydrogen battery. Everything is going that direction. We could rebuild our economy and we could be shifting to more environmental friendly and more health friendly because a lot of the gas and oil and coal is very toxic to the communities. So that's the ways I want to go. And people say, well, how are you going to run on that in southwestern PA, right? We're supposed to be Trump country and coal mining, which there isn't all that much coal, but well, you run on the economic benefits. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what people are talking about. When they say coal, they really mean money. They really mean a paycheck. So what we do is we bring in those industries. Other ways that we can do is provide grants. If you're losing your business, we can give special grants to more businesses that come in to replace those jobs right away. And then there's also trade, right? 3 ways of trade. Union apprenticeship programs. We can use stipend trade schools so that when you're doing a trade school, you can pay your bills. And then the third is tax credits for very specific industry jobs. So if you bring in an industry and they have a very specific task that they need trained on, we'll give tax credits to train those people up. So those are the ways to build it, and that you need all those different things for kind of a green renewable energy sector. It's not any one silver bullet.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you know this because I just found out a few months ago. I was doing a story outside of Lancaster in Conestoga. They're building all these pipelines on people's property without their permission. Pennsylvania is actually the second highest state of pipelines. It's Texas and then us.
Wow.
Which is crazy. But yeah, in Lancaster area and everything, I mean, there are thousands it's crazy. And now they're, in Philly and everywhere, they're just going up all over. So yeah, we take second place, which is just bananas.
That's crazy.
I had no idea. That's crazy. A couple people in the chat want to know if you are familiar with modern monetary theory.
Yes, I am. MMT, yep. And I do think that there is a possibility of using that to, say, fund a UBI program, the Universal Basic Income Program, using it to basically pay for some of these bigger projects. One of the things is you're either going to have to change around the tax codes so that the wealthiest 1% or 1.0%, 0.01% pay their fair share of taxes, which they should, and we need to. But we can also do this with the MMT, or do an MMT while we're trying to do tax codes. There's also auditing the military. That's now becoming a thing for the first time. The military has never been audited, only sections of it. That'll be hundreds of millions of dollars coming from audits, different things like that. So yeah, I'm for MMT, and I'd like to see exactly what the plan is for controlling inflation. But as long as our production is high, we can do an MMT. And I think what you need is also, back with the renewable energy, you need a strong production to be able to make up for it so inflation doesn't get out of control. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. I kind of had a feeling you'd know what it was because of your science background. To me, it's kind of like a science. I don't know. I actually forgot to say that in your introduction. Do you want to kind of explain what you do at your research associate at Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, so I just started back at Pitt, but yeah, so I could tell you so I started about 20 years ago doing behavioral electrophysiology for 17 years, and that's recording from the electrical activity of cells, because brain cells are like little batteries, and when they fire an action potential, you could say a pulse, there's a discharge, and then you record that from an electrode. And you record these patterns, and you look at the pattern of how the brain, depending on if you're in somatosensory, it's touch, if you're in the visual cortex, it's vision, blah, blah, blah. How does that pattern activity break down the world and rebuild it? At Carnegie Mellon, as a research associate, I was doing 2-photon microscopy. So I did a surgery where I'd inject a virus that causes a cell to glow when there's a calcium influx. And I could record hundreds of cells firing at once to a visual pattern. So that was pretty cool. That's what I really like, is those kind of high-end, abstractly, what's the brain doing with this pattern activity. And then now I'm in the spinal cord. But
can you also use something like that to see what causes like addiction or depression, something like that?
There are labs that do that. I don't do that. Definitely looking at how does the patterns change. Is there a depression? What the different cell types, because you got different cell types depending on inhibitory and excitatory are the two main general. Excitatory means cell A causes cell B to fire. Inhibitory means when cell A fires, it prevents cell B from firing, because you can have many neurons synapsing on any one neuron. So if you could think of it as a binary kind of, do I fire or not? But it gets far more complex when you get into millions and billions of cells and synapses. So then people look at, how does the pattern change? What does a pattern in the normal brain say? And normal brains, there's no such thing. Everybody's brain fires a little bit differently. And then how does drugs change that? And how does it do it for the long term? And why does it change it that way? And what can we learn from this to maybe help with the disease further down?
Wow, that's awesome. And speaking of addiction, I saw you do have opioids on your platform. Is that something prevalent in Pittsburgh area?
Yeah, my area. In fact, one of my counties, Westmoreland County, has more opiate overdoses than any other county in Pennsylvania. It's a huge problem. Yeah, and you probably heard these numbers. In 2017, there were more people that died from opiates than the entire Vietnam War. So
Wow.
it's pretty crazy, and this is coming from pharmaceutical companies. We really need to crack down pharmaceutical companies on this with their advertising, the concentrations of pills. We need to standardize how people are getting opiates prescribed, where you need to standardize the prescriptions and how are we monitoring people taking opiates. 1/3 of people don't even know they're taking an opiate because of designer drug names. Um, and and the other issue is the likelihood of you becoming addicted to an opiate is in direct relationship to the length of your first prescription. So within your first prescription, you can become addicted. And depending on how long that prescription is and how they prescribe the medicine, you could become an addict and end up dying.
Wow.
These kind of things could be addressed very easily.
And as far as people getting arrested for doing drugs or having addiction problems, do you support rehabilitation instead of jail for those things?
Oh yeah, by far. Jail has, if jail has proven one thing, is that it doesn't work for the opiate crisis. It doesn't work. What we do know works is treatment and getting people away, broken from the addiction, and get them out of the environment. If there's an environment reinforcing it, because for a lot of people, there's an environment that reinforces it. These are people going into ketamine and where ketamine's a special K. What's the other one? I'm losing it. It's like heroin. You would think that would be easier to remember, but this is usually because they can't get their drugs any longer. Because it's like over half of the opiate addictions are from prescriptions.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't people that were looking to party. These are people, but despite that, it doesn't mean you lock them up, even if they were looking to party. But you see my point.
And how do you feel about legalization of cannabis?
I'm all for it.
I kind of had a feeling. Most people on my show are. And you do actually, on your platform, you do talk about civil rights and social justice, and that kind of plays hand in hand with locking up people of color all the time for something as minuscule as that.
Yeah.
What else do you hope to see in civil rights and social justice?
There's a lot. Number one thing I'd like to do, and that's one of the things that this subsidy idea addresses, right? Where I said your subsidy award is based on how needy the area is. This will encourage jobs to move into the neighborhoods, into the communities that we need them the most. And I'd really like to see a lot of these communities. They're basically red line districts, whether people say they exist anymore or not. At least private, industry-wise, they do. And that's one of the big things I'd like to do. There's a lot of equality with employment. My God, there's just so many issues. Education, we need equitable education. One of the ideas I had or have is providing middle class to low income daycares. They're like Head Start daycares. And so what it does is it provides a place for, parents to take their children while they work. But more importantly, it's bringing children up to speed for kindergarten. And I really want to expand basically the Head Start program so that this is nationwide, federally expanded, so that every family has an opportunity and every kid gets to start at the same starting line. Then I got other ideas for equitable education if you'd like, but I could explain or not. I don't want to talk to you. Another way we're becoming very connected, right? And we got these hubs. And one of the things, so if you remember SATs, GREs, if you got a question correct, right? a question got harder. If you got it wrong, it got easier. Now take that same concept, put it on kind of a tablet idea. And as kids are working on their tablet, their lesson is changing depending on if they're getting it right, getting it wrong. They're doing it in different ways depending on how the child learns. So there's a monitoring, being evaluating the child as the child's learning and adjusting it in real time. Now, does that mean that you don't need a teacher? Absolutely not. It can still teach a lesson, go around individually to the students. Now, you don't need exams anymore because it's evaluating the kids in real time. You don't need homework because they're working in real time. And then back at the teacher's desk, you can see all the different performances. You can see where people are excelling, where the kids aren't excelling, what individual ones, what's working for some. And then you can leave 10% for teachers to add their own ideas, their own programs to it. And then if it takes off, it can go back to, we can have it central where we're sharing it across the country. A teacher, let's say in Washington County, can actually end up influencing the entire country, because if their program takes off, then it gets distributed within the system. And then you can keep evaluating it and see if it works. So not only why you do that, well, for one thing, it's cheaper for a school, and it's building all the kids at once. It's also going by their speed of learning, and it's adapting to the kid. And then it frees up the teacher to help individual kids a little bit more. I think that's would be a huge for making education more equitable.
Yeah, it sounds really interactive too. I think that'd be super advantageous for the kids because everybody learns differently. It's not a discovery. That's always been the case. If you want to leave our audience with basically like a final thought so that they go to your website or recommend you to people in PA or anything like that, what do you want to leave our audience with?
I think the most important thing right now is to look at the opportunity we have. We have a unique opportunity. Who cares how we got here, why we did? But what we have now is where we got average, normal people who aren't wealthy, able to step up and bring the ideas that we want. We have this massive grassroots going on. Look, I'm right here, speaking with people all around the country at this moment. What we need is help. We need help, because if you want an average person that actually just wants to run and help people, that's what it's going to take. It's you that has the power. You have the power. I don't have the power. I can run with these ideas. I can create these ideas. I can speak. I can fight for them. But if I can't get into office, I might as well not have them at all. The one thing I need is help. Spreading the word, liking things, donating. There's volunteering. We have even people around the country who are writing postcards for us. So there's a lot of things, and it's not just me. We have this unique opportunity to get a lot of good people who actually care about people. Isn't that crazy to say we can actually have politicians that are running for the sole reason that they just want to help people? That is such a cool thing. And I think that's really unique to have so many like that and actually have the opportunity, because so many people are engaged and excited right now. And that's what I want to keep going. And that's what, we got to keep going together. And that's what I want just basically leave off with. Let's keep us going. Let's keep fighting. Help me out, help others out. I'm going to do the same. And let's take back our government, our future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. To all my PA viewers, I just want to remind you that we vote on Tuesday the 15th. So that's about a week and a half. If you know people in the Pittsburgh area, definitely talk to them about Tom. There's a number of candidates in that area. I don't know of any in his district other than him, but It sounds like he's certainly the best one after the way he describes the other ones.
I didn't mean to rip it
Definitely
apart.
look into Tom. Look into any kind of progressives you can find. There are literally 29 primaries in less than 60 days. There's 11 in May and 18 in June. So they can't do it themselves. We got to get off our asses and vote. So thank you guys so much for watching. On, let's see, Friday, I have a candidate from West Virginia. Her name is Selena Vickers. She's running for House 32nd District. And she is actually, she is a total badass. She's been taking on people of the DNC. And Saturday, I will be seeing Bernie for the 7th time and filming that from Lancaster, Pennsylvania at about 10:30 a.m. So again, thank you guys for watching, and thank you so much, Tom. I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care.